Welcome back. Today on Dialed In DIY, we're making 3D stars that glow brightly in the dark. There's many ways you can use these for decorations or just for having some fun, but there's a few things that you need first. The first thing you need to do is find a candy mold that's shaped like stars. I found this particular one at a craft store that had a baking section, and this was perfect because it was very inexpensive and made of plastic, which I can use over and over again. We're going to start by preparing the mold so that our materials don't stick to it, and to do that you need a little bit of Vaseline or petroleum jelly or anything that's similar to that. Grab a paintbrush and lightly dab it around the inside of each section of the mold. As you go along, I'm also going to coat the outside edges as well on that flat surface, and you'll see why later that was an important step as well. Now you need to find yourself some 100% silicone caulking materials. It comes in a tube, but I found these in the clearance bin at a local hardware store, which turned out perfect because the price was right. I estimated out a couple or so tablespoons of the material into a disposable cup, then I grabbed my strontium aluminate. This is known as super glow powder, and you can find it online at a very good price. I'm going to add about a half to 3/4 of a teaspoon of this powder into the mix and stir it up thoroughly. This is the same material I used in the video on how to make reusable glow sticks that's linked in the description below. In that video, I talk a lot more about the strontium aluminate, how to get it, and as well, the best ways to charge it up for the longest glow times. Now we're adding about a teaspoon of plaster of Paris, but you can also use cornstarch, and the purpose behind this is it's hydrophilic, which means it's going to help draw out the moisture and get this to set up much more quickly. So what you want to do now is stir it up quickly and completely, but it's going to dry quicker, so you have to work fast at this point. Now you want to quickly start working on getting it into the mold, and I'm using some really high-tech tools here. Just kidding. A disposable plastic spoon and a disposable coffee stir stick. These actually work really well, and obviously, if you are working on a budget, the price is right for this particular project. You'll notice that I only prepared and I'm working with 5 of the sections of this particular mold, and that's because this material will set up firmly, and I wanted to make sure that I had a time to get this exactly the way I wanted it before it started to dry up a little bit too much. So if you wanted to do the whole thing, I recommend mixing in 2 batches. The great thing about working with a clear plastic mold is you can turn it over to check for bubbles and look for imperfections in your surface areas, so that you can then turn it back over and push down to fix as needed. Using this kind of silicone material, I'm only worried about the surface kind of imperfections, so all you need to do is turn it over and get a good quick look at what it's going to look like, and know if you need to do anything else. Once you get enough accomplished on the surface, you can go back over with this stick and smooth off the backside surface and get rid of any excess material. Once I have it leveled off in the back, I'll go back around with a stick and draw a little line around each shape. This creates a little bit of a separation line for each, so once it's dry, it makes it easier to remove. You'll notice for the first several minutes it's going to stay really tacky and sticky, and it'll get stuck to your fingers if you're not careful, but you can clean that up pretty easy using rubbing alcohol or hand sanitizer. It'll help to separate it from your skin really easily. Once it dried a little bit more, I took all my excess material, put it between both of my hands, and rubbed it into a ball. Once it's set, it turns into a glow-in-the-dark bouncy ball. Pretty cool. I let this particular batch dry overnight and then came back to it. You can tell if you squeeze from the bottom, it's not going to do a whole lot, but all you have to do is start to flick up an edge on that excess material that you left on the surface, which is why I mentioned that before, and start to gently pull. Once you get a little bit of an edge coming up, you can grab the tip of the star and it will pull nicely out. See, the surface looks nice and clean, so I repeated the process for the rest of the 5 stars. Now we're going to want to clean up our stars and remove that excess material from the surface area of the mold itself, and this is where I pull out a repurposed cutting board. These little cutting mats are great for something like this. Put the stars right on there and grab any kind of a sharp little knife or a razor blade and start cutting away at the edges. Because it's just a thin layer of silicone, it cuts really easy. So you can go along all the edges and cut it away. Just note that it's going to get a little bit sticky and it'll stick to itself once the pieces have come off, so you're going to have to pull on them a little bit to make sure you've cleaned it up really well. But it's not very hard to do. Just take some time, be patient, and what you're left with when you're done is something you're going to be pretty happy with. Now I've got them all cleaned up, and let's take a look. If you pick one up, you'll find out they do remain flexible once they're dry, which is actually pretty nice. That's the benefit of using this silicone kind of an agent and adding our drying agent to it. It actually works really well. Do note though that silicone has a strong smell, and you're going to want to let this air out really well before you bring them inside. Now that you're done, you're going to want to find a fun way to display your new stars. And I've tried a lot of them, and most of them don't work because silicone does not let stuff stick to it very well. However, hot glue and magnets do seem to work pretty well. But if I had this one to do over again, I'd probably put the magnets inside the material when I was letting it set. Another option though, and this one works great, is some needle and thread. I just grabbed some regular sewing thread, doubled it up, put it through a needle, and sent it right on through the silicone. Because it's soft, it goes through pretty easy. However, I needed a pair of pliers to pull it through the other side. Once I was done, I knotted the string and actually put a loop in the top side, and then pulled that back down tight against the edge of the star. The good news is that silicone is going to really hold on against that thread, and it's not going to pull back out, but that didn't stop me from making sure there was a knot on both ends of the thread, just in case. Now you can hang your star just about anywhere you want, or you can even put a hook on it and use it as an ornament. Now let's take a look at what we ended up with in terms of a glow response. After having it in ambient light, just turned out the lights really quick, have them hanging here, and it glows really bright and really long. I used some candy molds and other fun projects as well, so come back and check us out soon. There's going to be plenty more. Thank you for watching. Please press like and then subscribe. There will be more Dialed In DIY to come.